Even after we had kids, Bob showed no interest in caring for them. A few years later, he was assigned to a solo relocation. When Bob rarely came home, I worried about him, and Sarah suggested we visit him. On our 15th wedding anniversary, I went to Bob's apartment, but he wasn't there. Using the spare key, I entered the apartment and, while cleaning, found a signed divorce petition. I froze. The room had clear signs of cohabitation, 2 sets of dishes, toothbrushes, and more. Then, in the bedroom, I found a note that filled me with despair. It read, "Dinner with Rachel at the restaurant where I proposed to marry. Give Rachel the engagement ring and a pink rose bouquet." My vision went dark. All the times I'd endured his behavior flashed through my mind, and my entire body burned with fury. "Fine, we'll get divorced if that's what you want, but you won't get off easy. Go ahead and enjoy tonight. I'll make sure you hit rock bottom afterward. Just you wait." I'm Mary, a 47-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband, Bob, who's 2 years younger, for 15 years. Bob and I went to the same high school, and even back then, he was quite the heartthrob. With his good looks and being great at both sports and academics, it was no surprise. It was during a time when giving Valentine's Day chocolates was popular, and on that day, during every break, there'd be a line of girls waiting to give Bob their chocolates. I also saw him a few times after school, being called behind the building where girls would confess their feelings to him. With his handsome face and charm, Bob would date one girl after another, but somehow he managed to avoid any drama and kept things smooth. When I moved on to college and got busy with my life, Bob faded from my memory. But later, I met Bob again through work, and all those memories came rushing back. Compared to the popular Bob, I was just an ordinary person. Naturally, he didn't remember me, but when I mentioned during a break that we went to the same high school, he seemed interested. We bonded over conversations about our old teachers, and soon enough, we started dating. 2 years later, Bob proposed, and we got married. I had no doubt that with him, I'd be happy. He was confident and a bit selfish, but back then, I found even those traits endearing. I had no idea how exhausting it would be to get caught up in Bob's whirlwind. Unlike me, who started living on my own when I got my first job, Bob lived with his parents until we got married. His parents were kind people, but as an only child, they tended to spoil him. That's probably why he couldn't do any housework at all. Since I was working full-time, I made sure to bring this up before we got married. I get that cooking isn't your thing, and that's fine, but I want us to share the housework. We'll be living together after all.
Yeah, I get it.
Would you mind handling the cleaning and doing the dishes?
Sure thing. Leave everything but the cooking to me.
But that was just talk. Once we were married, he used being busy with work as an excuse to avoid doing anything. "Hey, can you hang up the laundry before bed and do the dishes too?"
Yeah, I'll do it later.
He'd say that while sprawled on the couch, playing a game on his phone. Of course, that promise was never kept. He'd fall asleep, leaving the wet laundry sitting in the washing machine, so I'd end up hanging it. The dishes were the same, left in the sink until morning. When I brought it up the next day, he'd scratch his head and grin sheepishly.
Sorry, I lay down and just fell asleep. You're the best, Mary, always on top of things. I'll do better next time.
I suggested buying a washer-dryer combo and a dishwasher, but Bob shot that idea down.
We need to save money. It's gonna get more expensive once we have kids, right?
Yeah, I guess. At the time, I thought Bob had a point, so I quietly went along with it. Looking back now, I might have been the one who set the stage for his entitled behavior. At first, I kept reminding Bob about slacking off on housework, but eventually, I got tired of nagging and just did it all myself. Not long after, I became pregnant with our daughter, Sarah, and because of severe morning sickness, I quit my job and became a stay-at-home mom. That's when Bob's attitude got even worse, and he started acting like a king. Before this, Bob, who earned a good salary, covered slightly more of our living expenses, while I contributed my share. But the moment I became a stay-at-home mom, Bob started giving me only $300 a month for household expenses. This is way too little. Baby supplies are expensive, and prices have gone up. I showed him our household budget on my phone app, but he didn't care.
You're just wasting money. Other families manage just fine. Try harder, will you? This is why people with degrees from third-rate colleges are a problem.
But Bob cut me off, sneering.
You're a stay-at-home mom, and you're still buying clothes for yourself? Who cares how a mom dresses? Spend that money on Sarah.
His accusations made me snap back. I haven't bought clothes for myself since before I got pregnant. I go to the salon maybe once every 6 months. Meanwhile, you're at the salon every 2 weeks and buying new clothes and watches all the time. Bob frowned in annoyance.
What's wrong with spending my paycheck how I want? I don't need someone I'm supporting to lecture me. If you don't like it, earn more than me.
Then he chuckled.
Well, good luck with that. A degree from a top university like mine beats yours any day.
I was left speechless. When I talked about going back to work after having the baby, he was the one who fiercely opposed it and ordered me to stay home. Even though it wasn't fair, I always swallowed my complaints to avoid fights. I didn't want things to get tense between us with little Sarah around. Every month, I covered the shortfall with my savings from when I was single, but it was a constant struggle. When we went out as a family, we must have looked like a mismatched bunch. Bob decked out in designer clothes and flashy watches, sparkling like he was the only one who mattered. Sarah was dressed nicely enough. But there I was, with barely any makeup, my unkempt hair tied back, wearing worn-out clothes. Bob didn't just avoid housework, he dumped all the parenting on me too. Even when Sarah got older and wanted to play with him, he blatantly showed his disinterest. Bob's excuse was always the same.
I'm just not good with kids, you know? They're selfish and annoying. If they did what I said, it'd be fine, but they always complain.
Depending on the situation, it's our job as parents to teach them, right? I said, exasperated, but Bob corrected me.
Raising kids is the mother's job. Make sure she listens to me.
With this attitude, it was no surprise that Sarah picked up on his indifference. Naturally, she grew to dislike him. And yet, whenever Bob randomly decided to talk to her and she acted distant, he'd get angry.
She's just like you. No charm at all. This is why I hate kids. Raise her to respect her father.
When our son, Chris, was born 4 years later, Bob was just as uninterested. If Sarah and Chris were playing happily in the living room, he'd yell at them for being too loud, and if they were just chatting, he'd try to kick them out of the room. Sarah, who was strong-willed, pushed back against him, while the quiet Chris withdrew in fear. It was the inevitable outcome. Lately, Bob had been working more overtime, weekends, and business trips, which should have meant more money, but our finances never improved. He was spending it all on himself. The thought of divorce started to cross my mind, but with Sarah and Chris still in elementary school, I couldn't take that step. Bob, who always flaunted his education to act superior, suddenly quit his job one day.
I need a workplace where my skills are actually valued. Otherwise, it's a waste of my talent.
Seeing him so smug, I went pale and asked, "You just handed in your resignation. Chris is only 3. What are we going to do?"
Don't worry. I'm not expecting you to support me.
Bob snapped back, his tone rough.
I'll look for a job after a little break. You just keep enjoying your time at home.
I felt a surge of anger. I was already overwhelmed raising 2 kids. But we couldn't afford to be complacent, so I turned to my parents and connections, and managed to get a job as an office clerk. I enrolled Chris in daycare and started working full-time. As expected, Bob still wasn't job hunting 6 months later. He just lay on the couch, glued to his phone games. After a year of unemployment, he finally made an effort, but his expectations were too high. Even when he found openings, he kept failing interviews.
Seriously, these people have no clue. They can't even recognize my talent. They're all idiots.
Yeah, sure. He acted tough, but I could see he was panicking inside. Seeing Bob spiraling, I reached out through my connections and found him a sales job. To protect his pride, I told him it came through a friend.
The same company as you?
No, the office is in a different location. Though he left reluctantly, he came home that day in high spirits. He'd gotten the job on the spot. The next day, he started working again as a full-time employee. 2 years later, Bob was offered a transfer to another city and, of course, accepted it without consulting me.
It's great the company's providing a place for me to stay.
He seemed thrilled.
I thought it'd be some dumpy apartment, but it's a stylish condo at a great price. They must be doing well.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll arrange for the movers. As he cheerfully packed his things, Bob said to us,
You'll miss me, but hang in here. When I come back in 5 years, I'll be sitting in a supervisor's chair.
I was beyond exasperated. Did he really think we'd cry and beg him to stay, after all his bossy behavior and lack of connection with his family? He still only gave me $300 for living expenses, but with one less mouth to feed, managing the budget got a little easier. 3 years had passed since Bob left for his solo assignment. When his transfer was first decided, Bob made a declaration.
I'll come back once a month. I'll also be here for Sarah and Chris's birthdays and our wedding anniversary.
You don't have to push yourself, Dad. You're busy, right?
Sarah said coldly, but Bob insisted.
No, even if we're apart, we're still a family. That's just the way it should be.
My kids and I couldn't help but feel skeptical. Was he trying to play the part of a family man now? The first 2 times, Bob kept his promise. I messaged him to check on how he was doing and prepared his favorite meals when he came home, enjoying the little bit of normalcy between us. I guess it's true that being apart makes people kinder. Bob even made an effort to bond with Sarah and Chris and helped out with chores like cleaning the bathtub and doing the dishes. But gradually he started leaving my messages on read, then stopped reading them altogether. He didn't even send a single message on Sarah or Chris's birthdays or our wedding anniversary. We'd see him during the holidays at his parents' house, but he never visited us, always rushing back to his apartment. The brief moments of connection we'd had left me feeling more sad than angry. I'd given up on him as a selfish man, yet as our 15th wedding anniversary approached, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. It was because of the promise Bob made when he proposed to me at a fancy French restaurant.
On our 15th anniversary, we'll come back here and I'll give you a bouquet of roses. They'll be pink, just like you love.
Really? Don't forget, okay?
Don't worry, I'll remember.
As I held the pink rose bouquet he gave me alongside my engagement ring, I was enchanted by his warm smile and romantic words. Before we got married, Bob was attentive. He'd make reservations for dinner cruises just like I wanted, or take me on drives to see beautiful city nightscapes. Even though he was younger, he tried so hard to please me, and I found that adorable. He probably won't come back this year either. I muttered, and Sarah made a suggestion.
Mom, why don't you surprise Dad by visiting him on your anniversary?
She remembered because I'd told her about that promise before. But
You can take a day off, right? If you fly, you can go and come back the same day. I'm in 7th grade now. I can watch Chris while you're gone.
her innocent smile gave me the push I needed, and I decided to visit Bob at his place. There was no point in messaging him. Bob wouldn't reply anyway. He had probably forgotten all about the bouquet of roses he once promised. Not only forget dining out at a fancy restaurant, also he'd probably be too lazy to even offer me a welcome drink. But I figured that, at least for our 15th wedding anniversary, it wouldn't hurt for us to spend it together. That day, I felt strangely excited. In the early afternoon, I packed Bob's favorite foods into a lunchbox and left the house. He's hopeless at cleaning, so the place is probably a mess. Maybe that's why he never invites us. He's probably living off ready-made meals from the grocery store. To be honest, I felt more inclined to care about Bob now than when we lived together. It had been 5 months since we last saw each other, back at New Year's. After a 2-hour flight, I arrived at Bob's apartment just as dusk set in. I rang the doorbell, but he wasn't home. He must still be at work. I used the spare key, stepped inside, and immediately felt something was off. Everything was spotless. He usually leaves his clothes lying around and dirty dishes in the sink. On top of that, the sofa set and decorative shelves were in an ornate Rococo style, all white and gold. Completely unlike Bob's taste. Puzzled, I pulled the vacuum cleaner out of the hallway closet. There wasn't much to clean, but I decided to tidy up a bit anyway. As I approached the dining table, I froze. My eyes were drawn to a paper sitting there, and I couldn't move. A divorce petition. It was already signed by Bob. I nearly collapsed to my knees, but steadied myself by gripping the table. Why? A horrible thought hit me, and I dropped the vacuum cleaner, running to the kitchen cabinet. Sure enough, through the glass doors, there were 2 mugs and 2 wine glasses. I rushed to the bathroom. There were 2 cups and 2 toothbrushes side by side. There was even a makeup box. Reluctantly, I walked to the bedroom. There were 2 pillows with matching pillowcases and pajamas in different colors. When I opened the closet next to them, it was filled with women's clothes. There was no doubt Bob was living with someone else. Unable to bear it, I sank to the floor in front of the closet. Glancing at the wall, I noticed today's date marked on a calendar in Bob's handwriting. The word anniversary was roughly crossed out, and beneath it, in a playful scrawl, it read, "Dinner with Rachel at the restaurant where I proposed to marry. Give Rachel the engagement ring and a pink rose bouquet." My vision went dark. Bob was cheating on me with a woman named Rachel, and it seemed he planned to propose to her tonight, fully intending to divorce me. And he knew it was our 15th wedding anniversary. Unforgivable. A surge of rage boiled up from deep inside me. All the times I'd endured his behavior flashed through my mind, and my entire body burned with fury. "Fine, we'll get divorced if that's what you want, but you won't get off easy," I muttered, clenching my fist. "Go ahead and enjoy tonight. I'll make sure you hit rock bottom afterward. Just you wait." I quickly put the vacuum cleaner away, opened the fridge, and placed the lunchbox I'd prepared right in the middle. "Made with love for my dear Bob. I hope you enjoy it, Mary." I stuck the heart-marked note onto the box, grabbed the divorce papers, and headed home. When I got home, I filled out the divorce papers, submitted them to the courthouse, and took paid leave from work to handle the upcoming formalities. The next morning, I called my father to tell him about the divorce. His voice dropped. I could hear my mother's despair through the phone.
Bob seemed like such a kind man. I'm so disappointed.
I wish you had come to us sooner.
I'm sorry. I didn't want you to worry. I apologized to my parents and asked for help. Can we stay with you until I find a new place?
Of course. We'll support you however we can. Come home.
Thank you. After hanging up, I immediately booked a moving company. That evening, when Sarah and Chris got home from school, I told them about the divorce. Chris looked worried.
Mom, are we going to have to change schools? Will our last name change too?
I smiled, trying to reassure him. You can stay at your current school. I'm looking for a place near your grandparents' house. That way, we'll have help nearby if we need it.
Okay. As long as we don't have to change schools, it's fine.
Chris answered calmly. Then Sarah tilted her head.
Wait, we're leaving the house, but this place.
I smirked. It's about time for a renovation or rebuild, so I figured we might as well sell it.
Oh, I get it.
Sarah grinned too. I encouraged Chris, and we started packing. Neither of them seemed to care about not seeing Bob anymore. Considering he'd never really acted like a father, their reaction made perfect sense. 2 days later, unaware that we had moved out, Bob sent a condescending message.
Don't go into my place without permission. Well, at least you saved me the trouble of sending the divorce papers. You filed them, right?
Yes, I filed them that same day.
Good. Oh, and I ate out, so I trashed the food you left.
Despite the obvious signs that he was living with someone, Bob didn't seem worried that his affair had been exposed. He showed no concern about alimony or child support either. Did he really think our 15-year marriage would just end with a piece of paper and that he'd seamlessly marry his mistress? If so, he was an absolute fool. I smirked at his message, then took Sarah and Chris's phones and headed to the cell phone store.
How can we help you?
I've gotten divorced, so I'd like to cancel these numbers. Please give us new ones. I'll sign up for a separate plan for me and the kids.
Understood.
Blocking Bob's contact wasn't enough to satisfy me. Just seeing his icon made me sick to my stomach. Later, while searching online for housing options during work breaks and evenings, I found a nice rental apartment near my parents' place. After thanking my parents again, I moved in with Sarah and Chris. 2 months later, after work and grocery shopping, I returned to the apartment to find Bob standing by the entrance, his face twisted with rage. Chris was standing a little way off, shoulders hunched.
Hey, what the hell is going on?
As soon as he saw me, Bob started shouting.
I finally came back, and my house is gone. None of your numbers work.
Oh, right. I replied casually, which made Bob even angrier.
It's just a vacant lot now. What the hell does that mean? Your parents refuse to tell me where you are. What do you think you're doing?
Mom, I'm sorry for bringing Dad here.
I gently patted Chris on the back, trying to comfort him. It's okay. I was thinking we needed to meet and talk properly at least once. Chris looked a little relieved at my words. Meanwhile, Bob, completely oblivious, sneered and mocked me.
Seriously, you really are dumb. If you wanted to disappear completely, you should have moved farther away. Staying this close just made it easy to find you.
I sighed. Of course I knew that. Doesn't he get it? I didn't want to disrupt Sarah and Chris's lives by making them change schools. That's why we moved here.
Dad, stop waiting for me by the gate and following me around. You look like a creep.
Chris squeezed out the words, and Bob scowled.
Blame your mother. You all disappeared without a word. It's ridiculous to rebel against the head of the family.
Okay, let's just go. I cut off Bob's shouting and headed toward the apartment. Once inside, Chris quickly dropped his backpack in his room and ran off to a friend's house, clearly wanting no part of this. Bob slumped onto the sofa, threw his feet up, and looked around the room with a critical eye.
Living in a nice place, splurging on a measly salary.
He spoke arrogantly as I prepared drinks.
By the way, I tried to use my card at the store, but it got declined. I don't carry cash, so I was stuck. Any idea why?
I brought 2 mugs over, set his steaming cup on the table, and smiled coldly. That's not your card, remember? It's a family card. Bob looked confused. I sat at the edge of the sofa and explained slowly. When you were unemployed and needed a card, I got one for you in my name. So canceling it is my choice.
What?
Bob's irritation flared, but I continued. And that house, when did it ever belong to you? My parents gave me that land, and the house was built in my name. Bob, how much money did you actually put into it? Bob paused, thinking for a while, and when he finally understood my words, he tried to cover his embarrassment by taking a sip from his mug. As he choked from trying to gulp it down too quickly, I glanced at him and continued speaking. The sofa, the TV, the shelf, the dining table, even the car. You were so stingy, I paid for everything with my salary, remember?
Yeah, but what about my clothes and magazines? If you threw them out, you'll pay for that.
I sent them to your apartment. Didn't Rachel get them? You should ask her. Bob's face twisted like he was chewing on something bitter. I smiled sweetly. Oh, and how's Rachel? She used to be the receptionist at your old company, right? I hope you two are enjoying your newlywed life. Must be so blissful. He couldn't come up with a response to my sarcastic comment, his face darkening in frustration.
Yeah, things are great. Stop interfering. We're not married anymore, so just leave me alone. You're so annoying, clinging to one little affair.
Something snapped inside me. I had tried to stay calm, but this was the limit. Yes, that's right. I'll admit it was just once, but it lasted a long time, didn't it? More than half of our marriage, right? I stood up, took a file from the bookshelf, and spread it out on the table. Bob's face paled as he saw the stack of photos and documents. You accepted the solo assignment just so you could live with Rachel, didn't you?
What? No.
I shoved the investigation report right under his nose. I hired a detective. You started cheating right after I got pregnant with Chris, didn't you?
Well.
Bob was speechless, and my anger erupted. Rachel told a former coworker about your affair. She said, I've been waiting for 10 years, but he still won't leave Mary. I wish he'd just get a divorce already.
That idiot. I told her not to tell anyone, and she went and blabbed to the whole office.
Bob pressed his forehead, letting out a groan. If it went on for 10 years, you should have just asked for a divorce sooner.
I was fine with how things were. She was just a fling.
He spat the words out with that same arrogant expression.
When Rachel found out our 15th anniversary was coming up from my phone, she pressured me to propose to her on the same day at the same restaurant. She's such a pain.
He shook his head as if annoyed. Seriously, stop blaming other people. You're pathetic.
It's the truth. So what do you expect?
Bob snapped, his words coming out in a rush.
To be honest, I didn't want to get divorced. My old job and my current one have clients who are mostly families. Divorce would ruin my image and hurt sales, so I put up with the marriage.
Oh, you put up with it, right? I said, my voice dripping with frustration. Completely oblivious to my anger, Bob sighed.
Rachel keeps asking when I'll marry her, but I really don't want to get remarried.
Just as Bob was grumbling, the sound of the front door opening caught our attention. Sarah had come home. Bob looked over and his eyes widened. Behind Sarah, who was wearing her school blazer, a middle-aged man in a suit entered the room. Thank you for taking the time to come, especially with your busy schedule. The man's expression softened, and he smiled kindly.
It's no problem. I've kept my schedule clear for this.
Sarah, it's been a while. You look well.
Sarah's face twisted in clear distaste at his cheerful greeting. Then the man turned to Bob, smiling.
Carrying on an affair for 10 years? That takes some serious nerve. Not something we see every day.
Oh, thanks. Well, who are you?
Exactly the reaction I expected. As Bob looked confused, I smirked. You were in a meeting in England on our wedding day, remember?
Sorry, I missed your big day.
It's fine, Robert. I smiled at my uncle, Robert, who looked apologetic. Bob, I showed you the family photos, but I guess you forgot.
I mean, most people remember the face of their boss, don't they?
Wait, the boss.
Sarah's comment made Bob's eyes go wide. He stared at Robert, his face turning pale as he began to tremble.
You mean that Robert?
Yes, when you couldn't find a new job, I talked to Robert and recommended you. As I revealed the truth, Bob grabbed my shoulders, looking like he was about to cry.
Why didn't you tell me sooner?
Oh, I did. When we got married, I told you my family runs a company, and I even showed you Robert's photo. You're the one who didn't pay attention. As I looked at him in exasperation, Bob buried his head in his hands and sank onto the sofa. It seemed he finally realized the gravity of what he'd done. Robert spoke in a solemn tone.
Actually, we've received countless complaints from employees about you. They say you use your prestigious degree to act superior, which disrupts the workplace.
I didn't mean to.
Bob's reply trailed off.
When I tried to contact you through Mary to address the issue, I found out you were living with another woman in one of our company apartments. Now that you and Mary are no longer together, this is the perfect time to let you go.
Bob's face was filled with panic.
Wait, you're firing me?
Of course, you're officially terminated as of today.
Robert's firm tone left no room for argument.
Leave the company apartment by tomorrow.
That's impossible. Mary sold the house, and now it's just an empty lot. I have nowhere to go.
Bob's voice trembled with desperation, but I spoke calmly. Why don't you look for a place with Rachel?
I spent all my savings to live with her. You saw the fancy furniture and the engagement trip to Europe for a week. I can't afford to rent a place right now.
Tears welled up in Bob's eyes as he sniffled and hastily apologized.
Mary, I was wrong. It was just a stupid mistake. I realize now that my family is what really matters.
Sarah scoffed and looked down at Bob with cold eyes.
Please, you just weighed your options and chose whoever benefited you the most.
Stay out of this, kid.
After snapping at Sarah, Bob forced a pleading smile at me, still begging for forgiveness.
The kids need a father, don't they? Chris is still in elementary school. Being a single mom isn't fair to them.
And whose fault is that? Ignoring my remark, Bob kept rambling.
I was just testing you, Mary. I wanted to see if you'd still love me, even if I cheated. Come on, every man cheats at least once, right? If you divorce me over one affair, people will say you're too impatient. Is that really what you want?
Oh, I'm so done with this.
Sarah shouted again. Pointing at Bob, she turned to me, furious.
Mom, I don't want to call someone like this my father. He's apologizing, but all he does is make excuses.
Hey, you don't have to go that far.
Don't act like you know best. You never cared about us or acted like a real dad.
Her face full of anger, Sarah shouted at Bob.
We'll be happier without you. Less stress, more peace. You can go play house with that other woman.
Even though Bob had been neglectful, he didn't seem to realize how much his 13-year-old daughter hated him. Defeated, Bob slumped and left, his head hanging low. As Robert promised, Bob was fired. He tried to get another job right away, but his bad reputation spread through the industry, and no one would hire him. He ended up lashing out at Rachel.
This is all because I moved in with you. You need to take responsibility and support me.
What? Don't blame me. If you're broke and jobless, I have no reason to stay. Let's call off the engagement.
And just like that, Rachel dumped him. I demanded a lump sum alimony payment of $50,000 and monthly child support.
I can't pay that much.
You cheated for 10 years. It's a fair amount. If you don't like it, let's take it to court. That'll cost you even more. After that exchange, Bob borrowed the money and wired the alimony to my account. To repay his debt, Bob started working multiple part-time jobs and now works day and night with no rest. The child support payments arrive on time every month. His parents were furious about the situation. They cut ties with Bob completely. Since Sarah and Chris have always loved their kind grandparents, I make sure they stay in touch regularly even after the divorce. Of course, I also demanded alimony from Rachel. After getting involved with Bob, she quit her job and enjoyed a life of luxury funded by his money. Once she broke up with Bob and paid me the alimony, she found herself in financial trouble and had no choice but to start working reluctantly. Now she's scrambling to make ends meet, with no time or money left for luxury. Since the divorce, I've been living a busy yet happy life with Sarah and Chris. Balancing work and raising kids is tough, but I'm grateful for the support of my parents. Sarah and Chris willingly help around the house, which makes things much easier. Because I'm finally living with a sense of freedom, they smile more often too. From now on, I want to cherish peaceful days, keeping a warm and watchful eye on my kids, who still need my care.